Jake stood in the main tunnel of the mine, watching Zarathul grow weaker by the hour. Her red skin had turned pale, and her movements were slow and careful. She had not said anything about her condition since their conversation 2 days ago, but everyone could see she was dying. "We need to make a decision," Dr. Carter said quietly. She had been monitoring Zarathul's condition with what medical equipment they had. "Her life signs are failing. She might not last another day." "Good," said Carl Watson. "Let her die. She's one of them." "She's also our only source of information about the enemy," Jake replied. "And she chose to help us instead of her own people." "Because she had no choice," Amy pointed out. "You burned her when she tried to feed." "On you?" Jake had been thinking about this problem for hours. The white energy inside him was stronger now, and he could sense things he had never noticed before. When he looked at Zarathul, he could feel the darkness inside her, cold and hungry. But he could also feel something else. Something that felt almost human. What if there's another way? He said. Helen looked up from the electrical panel she had been working on. With her new abilities, she could control the mine's power systems just by thinking about them. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if we don't have to let her die, and we don't have to let her feed on one of us?" Dr. Carter frowned. "Jake, I don't understand." "She needs life force to survive. That's how her species works." "But what if that could change?" Jake asked. "What if she could learn to use a different kind of energy?" Danny Lee materialized next to them. He had been practicing his phasing ability, and now he could become solid or ghost-like almost instantly. "You want to try to change her biology? That sounds dangerous." "Everything we're doing is dangerous," Jake said. "But think about it. We're evolving beyond what we were designed to be." "Maybe she can too." Pete Rodriguez, who had been listening from across the tunnel, walked over to join them. "Even if that's possible, why would we want to help her? Her people are coming to kill us all." "Because she's not with her people anymore," Jake said. "She's with us. And if we can show other Vorthic that there's an alternative to being parasites, maybe we can stop this war before it destroys both our species." Frank Morris shook his head. "That's a nice idea, Jake, but you're talking about changing millions of years of evolution. That's not something you do overnight." "Maybe not," Jake admitted. "But we've all changed in just a few days. Why couldn't she?" Zarathul spoke from her corner of the tunnel. Her voice was weak, but she had been listening to their conversation. "It has been tried before." Everyone turned to look at her. She was sitting with her back against the wall, and her breathing was shallow. "What do you mean?" Jake asked. "There have been Vorthic who refused to feed on other species. They called themselves the Pure Ones. They believed we could survive on natural energy from stars or planets." "What happened to them?" Dr. Carter asked. "They died," Zarathul said simply. "All of them. Our bodies cannot process any energy except life force from other beings. It is how we were made." "But you weren't made," Jake said, moving closer to her. "You evolved. And if you can evolve one way, maybe you can evolve another way." Zarathul looked at him with tired eyes. "Even if that were possible, the process would require more energy than I have left. I would die before any change could take place." Jake knelt down beside her. "What if I gave you energy? Not life force, but the white energy that hurt you before. What if I could control it, make it helpful instead of harmful?" "Jake," Amy said, "that's insane. You don't know what that could do to either of you." "I know what will happen if we don't try," Jake replied. "She dies, and we lose our best source of information about the enemy. And when their fleet arrives, we'll be fighting blind." Helen had been running calculations in her head, using her enhanced mental abilities. Theoretically, it might work. If her cellular structure could be modified to process different types of energy, she might be able to survive without feeding on life force. "And if it doesn't work?" Pete asked. "Then we're exactly where we are now," Jake said. "Except she'll be dead, and we'll know it was impossible." Zarathul was watching Jake with something like curiosity. "Why would you risk yourself to save me? I am your enemy, No, Jake said. You were my enemy. Now you're something else. I'm not sure what yet, but you're not my enemy anymore. I have killed thousands of your kind. And I've killed dozens of yours in the last few days, Jake replied. We can spend forever talking about the past, or we can try to build a different future. The tunnel fell silent. Jake could feel the uncertainty from the other humans, but he could also feel something else. Hope. They wanted to believe that change was possible, even if they were afraid to try. How would it work? Dr. Carter asked Jake, looked at his hands. The white light was always there now, just under the surface of his skin. I think I can share my energy with her, but change it somehow. Make it compatible with her biology instead of harmful. That could kill you both, Amy warned. Maybe, Jake agreed. But doing nothing will definitely kill her, and probably kill all of us when the fleet arrives. Zarathul closed her eyes. If this works, I will be changed. I will no longer be truly. Vorthik, my own people will see me as an abomination. Join the club, Danny said with a grim smile. We're all abominations now. Very well, Zarathul said, opening her eyes. I will try. But if this kills us both, do not blame me for the outcome. Jake placed his hands on Zarathul's shoulders. Immediately he could feel the darkness inside her, cold and empty. But underneath that, he sensed something else. A spark of something that felt familiar. Everyone stand back, he said. The white light began to flow from his hands into Zarathul's body. At first, she screamed in pain, just like before. But Jake concentrated, trying to change the energy somehow, to make it feed her instead of burning her. It was like trying to turn fire into water while it was still burning. The energy wanted to destroy the alien biology it touched. Jake had to force it to become something else, something nurturing instead of harmful. Zarathul's scream cut off suddenly. The white light was spreading through her body, but instead of burning her, it seemed to be changing her. Her pale skin regained some of its red color. Her breathing became stronger, but something else was happening too. Jake could feel his own energy being drained away, not by her feeding process, but by the effort of transforming his power into something she could use. His vision started to blur. Jake, Dr. Carter shouted. Your vital signs are dropping. He could barely hear her. All his attention was focused on the energy flowing between him and Zarathul. He could feel her biology changing, adapting the process to new kind of energy. But the effort was killing him. Just as he thought he might collapse, something unexpected happened. Zarathul's hand came up and touched his arm. Instead of draining more energy away, she began to give some back, but it was not the same energy he had given her. It was something new, something that had been transformed by her alien biology and then changed again by her conscious will. It flowed into Jake like cool water, healing the damage caused by his efforts. The white light faded, and they both sat back, breathing hard. How do you feel? Dr. Carter asked Zara single quotes. Zarathul looked at her hands in wonder. Different. The hunger is gone. I can feel energy from the lights, from the electrical systems, even from the warmth of the rocks around us. I do not need to feed on life force anymore. And you? Helen asked Jake. Jake felt the energy moving through his body, but it was different now too. Stronger, more controlled, and somehow more complete. Better than ever. Pete stared at both of them. So what does this mean? It means, Jake said, that we just proved change is possible for all of us. And it means, Zarathul added, that when my people arrive, they will not find what they expect. Good, Jake said. Let's give them a surprise they'll never forget. 3 days had passed since Jake brought Zarathul to the mine. In that time, more survivors had discovered new abilities. Helen Wright could now control small electrical devices just by thinking about them. Danny Lee had learned to become solid, or ghost-like at will. Frank Morris had not eaten anything in a week and felt stronger than ever. Jake's own powers were growing too. The white light that came from his hands was brighter now, and he could feel energy patterns in living things around him. When he concentrated, he could sense the life force of every person in the mine. Each one felt different, like a unique fingerprint made of light. But it was what he sensed from Zarathul that worried him most. She sat alone in a corner of the main tunnel, away from the humans who still did not trust her. Jake could feel darkness around her, cold and hungry. It was not evil exactly, but it was alien in a way that made his new senses uncomfortable. "You have been watching me," she said without looking up as Jake approached. "Your energy feels different from ours," Jake said, sitting down across from her, colder, emptier. "That is because I am dying," Zarathul said simply. Jake was surprised. "What do you mean? My people do not just feed for pleasure. We need life force to survive. Without it, we weaken and eventually fade away." She looked at her hands. "I have not fed since I tried to drain you 3 days ago. I can feel myself getting weaker. How long can you last?" "Perhaps another week. Maybe less." Jake felt an unexpected stab of concern. "Why didn't you tell us sooner? Would it have mattered? Would you have let me feed on one of your people to save my life?" "No," Jake admitted. "But maybe we could have figured something else out." Zarathul laughed, but there was no humor in it. "There's nothing else. My species has fed on others for millions of years. It is what we are." "Maybe that can change too," Jake said. Before Zarathul could answer, Amy Jackson came running into the tunnel. "Jake, you need to see this right now." Jake followed Amy to the communications center, where Dr. Carter and several others were gathered around the radio equipment. The speakers were crackling with static, but voices could be heard underneath the noise. This is Captain Rogers of the Mars Defense Force. We are under attack by unknown alien vessels. They appear to be some kind of energy vampires. Repeat. We are under attack. Amy adjusted the frequency. Another voice came through, clear this time. New Tokyo colony reports successful defense against hostile forces. Civilian defenders showing unusual resistance to enemy weapons. Some individuals appear to have developed immunity to alien-feeding attacks. "There," Helen said, pointing to a readout on one of the screens. "I've been tracking signals from 17 different human worlds. They're all reporting the same thing. Attacks by energy-draining aliens and humans developing new abilities to fight back." Jake felt the energy in his body surge with excitement. "It's happening everywhere." "Not everywhere," Dr. Carter corrected. "I've also picked up signals from colonies that have gone completely silent. Whatever is happening to us, it's not happening to everyone." Danny Lee, who had been practicing phasing through walls, materialized beside them. "What does this mean? Are we winning or losing?" "Both," said a new voice. Zarathul had followed them to the communications center. The other humans tensed, but Jake waved them to stay calm. "Explain," Jake said. "Some of your colonies are developing the rising, as I told you, but others are being completely destroyed. My people have learned to identify worlds where the evolution is beginning, and they are attacking those worlds with much greater force." Amy looked pale. "You mean they're targeting us specifically because we're changing?" "Not just targeting," Zarathul said. "Exterminating. There are ancient protocols that most Vortak commanders have forgotten, but the High Council remembers. When they detect signs of the rising, they send the full force of the Empire to wipe out every living thing on that world." The communications center fell silent, except for the crackling of radio static. Jake could feel the fear from the other humans like a cold wind. "How much time do we have?" he asked. "I do not know. It depends on how many of your kind have developed abilities and how visible those abilities have become." Helen looked at her hands, which were sparking with small electrical charges. "We've been practicing our powers, testing them. If they're monitoring us." "They know," Zarathul confirmed. "They probably know about all of us. Dr. Carter sat down heavily in a chair. "So we're dead either way. If we don't develop our abilities, they kill us. If we do develop them, they send more ships to kill us. Not necessarily, Jake said. There has to be a reason this is happening now. Why are humans developing these abilities? Why haven't other species done the same thing? Zarathul was quiet for a long moment. There are theories, she said finally. Tell us. Some of our oldest texts speak of a species that was created to be the ultimate prey. Fast enough to provide good hunting, intelligent enough to be interesting, numerous enough to feed many, but also resilient enough to survive and spread across many worlds. You're talking about humans, Jake said. I am talking about a species that was designed by the Vortic themselves millions of years ago. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Around him, the other humans stared at Zarathul with expressions of shock and disbelief. That's impossible, Dr. Carter whispered. Is it? Zarathul asked. Your species appeared suddenly in your evolutionary record. You adapted to environments that should have killed you. You spread across your galaxy faster than any known species. You developed technology and intelligence at an unprecedented rate. You're saying we were bred like livestock, Helen said, her voice shaking with anger. I'm saying you were created to be the perfect prey species, but something went wrong. What went wrong? Jake asked. You were designed to be dependent on your creators for survival, but you became independent. You were designed to be limited to one world, but you spread to the stars. You were designed to be helpless against Vortic feeding, but now some of you can resist it. Frank Morris, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. You're saying we've gone beyond our original programming. I am saying you have evolved past your intended purpose. The genetic locks that were placed on your species are breaking down. You are becoming something your creators never intended. Jake felt the warm energy in his body pulse stronger. We're becoming free. Yes, and that terrifies the Vortic Empire more than anything else ever has. Amy was checking the radio frequencies again. Jake, listen to this. A new voice came through the speakers, speaking in a language none of the humans recognized. But Zarathul went rigid when she heard it. What is that? Jake asked. Vortic battle language, she said. They are coordinating a major attack. On? U.S.? On this entire system. I can hear ship commanders from at least 50 different vessels. They are planning to destroy every world in this area. Dr. Carter looked at the star charts on the wall. That would include 7 human colonies and 3 allied worlds. Millions of people. When? Jake asked. Zarathul listened to more of the transmission. Soon. They are gathering ships from across the sector. When they attack, they will use enough firepower to crack planets. Jake stood up, feeling the energy in his body build into levels he had never experienced before. Then we need to stop them. How? Danny asked. We're 30 people hiding in a mine. They have an entire fleet. We're not just 30 people, Jake said. We're the beginning of something new, something they created but can't control. He looked around at the faces of his friends and fellow survivors. They made us to be prey, but prey that fights back isn't prey anymore. What are you suggesting? Helen asked. I'm suggesting we show them what they really created, Jake said. I'm suggesting we stop running and start hunting. Zarathul stared at him. You want to attack the Vortic fleet. I want to do more than that, Jake said. I want to send a message to every Vortic in the galaxy. I want them to know that their perfect prey has become their perfect enemy. The white light around his hands was brighter now, and he could feel similar energy building in the other evolved humans around him. Whatever they had been designed to be, they were becoming something else, something dangerous. They wanted to create the ultimate prey, Jake said. Instead, they created us. The old mine entrance was built into the side of a rocky hill about 2 miles from the colony. Jake and his group walked there in silence, with Zarathul staying 20 feet behind him. Amy kept her pistol ready, and Pete carried his metal pipe like a club. Lisa checked her medical supplies every few minutes. Jake felt different with each step. The warm energy in his body was not fading. Instead, it seemed to be growing stronger and more controlled. He could feel it moving through his arms and legs like liquid fire, but it did not hurt. It felt like power. "Jake," Lisa said quietly, "we need to talk about what happened back there." "I know," he replied. "I don't understand it either. Your wounds heal completely. That's not possible with any known human biology." "Maybe human biology is changing," Jake suggested. Pete looked back at Zarathal. "What I want to know is why we're bringing her along. She's one of them." "She's also the only one who knows how their feeding process works," Jake said. "If I'm going to fight them, I need to understand them." "You cannot fight the Vorthic Empire," Zarathul called out from behind them. "We have ships that can destroy planets. We have weapons that can kill stars. What can one human do against such power?" "I guess we'll find out," Jake said without turning around. They reached the mine entrance as the sun was setting. The opening was covered by a heavy metal door that Pete had installed months ago. As part of the colony's emergency shelter plan, it had seemed like overkill at the time. Now it might be the only thing keeping the survivors alive. Lisa knocked on the door in a pattern. 3 short taps, 2 long ones, 3 short again. After a moment, they heard metal scraping against metal as someone opened the locks from inside. The door opened to reveal a man Jake did not recognize. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and worried eyes. He was holding a rifle and pointing it at Zarathal. "Who is that?" the man asked. "One of them," Amy said. "But Jake says she's with us now." "Are you insane?" the man asked. "They killed my family. I'm sorry for your loss," Jake said gently. "But she's not going to hurt anyone. I promise." The man looked at Jake, then at Zarathul, then back at Jake. "How can you promise that?" Jake held up his hand. The white light appeared around his fingers, soft but clearly visible in the growing darkness. "Because I can stop her if she tries." The man's eyes went wide. "What the hell is that?" "Something new," Jake said. "Can we come in? We need to talk to the other survivors." The man stepped aside, still staring at Jake's glowing hand. "My name is Carl Watson. I was visiting the colony when they attacked. Lost my wife and kids in the first wave." "I'm sorry," Jake said again. "We're going to make them pay for what they did." "How?" Carl asked. "There are hundreds of them up there." He pointed toward the sky, where the lights of alien ships could be seen moving between the stars. "I don't know yet," Jake admitted, "but I'm working on it." They went inside. The mine tunnel had been converted into a shelter with sleeping areas, a small kitchen, and a communication center. About 30 people were gathered there, all that remained of New Phoenix Colony's 8,000 residents. When they saw Zarathul, several people reached for weapons. Others backed away in fear. A few started shouting, "Why did you bring one of them here? Are you trying to get us all killed? Shoot it." Jake stepped between the crowd and Zarathul. Everyone calmed down. "She's not here to hurt anyone. She's one of them," shouted a woman Jake recognized as Helen Wright, a scientist who had worked at the colony's research station. "They killed my husband." "I know," Jake said. "They killed a lot of people. But she's going to help us fight back." "Help us," Helen laughed bitterly. "Why would she help us? We're just food to them." Zarathul spoke for the first time since entering the mine. "Because your friend here is something I have never seen before. Something that should not exist." The crowd fell silent. Jake could feel all their eyes on him. "What does that mean?" asked Danny Lee, a young construction worker who had survived the attack on the industrial district. "It means," Zarathul said, looking directly at Jake, "that he is not fully human anymore." The silence stretched longer. Jake could feel the warm energy pulsing through his body, responding to the tension in the room. He held up his hand again, letting the white light shine brighter. "She's right," he said. "Something is changing in Emmy, something that makes me dangerous to them." Dr. Carter stepped forward. Jake, I need to examine you. If you're undergoing some kind of biological change, we need to understand what's happening. Good idea, Jake agreed. But first, I want to hear what she has to say. He turned to Zarathul. You've been studying me since we met. What do you think I am? Zarathul moved closer to the group, ignoring the weapons pointed at her. In our ancient texts, there are stories about a time when prey species would evolve beyond our ability to feed on them. We called it the Rising. Most of us believed it was just a myth. But now you don't, Jake said. Now I think it might be happening. She looked around the room at the frightened faces. How many of you have noticed strange things happening to your body since the attack? Helen Wright raised her hand slowly. I've been able to see energy patterns around electrical equipment, like I can see the power flowing through the circuits. Danny Lee looked embarrassed. I walked through a wall yesterday. Just pass. Right through it like it wasn't there. I thought I was going crazy. An older man named Frank Morris spoke up. I haven't needed to eat or drink anything since the attack. Don't even feel hungry. More people began sharing similar stories. Strange dreams, unusual strength, the ability to sense things that should have been impossible to detect. Jake listened. With growing excitement, it's not just me, he said. It's all of us. We're all changing. Not all, Zarathul corrected. Perhaps 1 in 10 of your species has this potential. The others ... she shrugged. They remain as they were. Lisa had been taking notes. This sounds like some kind of evolutionary response. An adaptation to an extreme threat. Or, Zarathul said quietly, it is something that was always there, waiting for the right trigger to activate it. What kind of trigger? Jake asked. Contact with a Vorthic feeding attempt, she said. We do not just drain life force. We also leave traces of our own energy in the victim. Usually, this kills them. But in some cases, it might activate dormant genetic potential. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as people tried to process this information. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in the mine. You're saying you infected us? He asked. I'm saying we might have awakened something that was already there, Zarathul replied. Something your species developed long ago, but never needed to use. Until now, Jake said. Until now. Helen Wright had been listening carefully. If this is true, if we're really evolving, then we might be able to fight back. We might actually have a chance. Perhaps, Zarathul said. But evolution takes time. And the Vorthic Empire will not wait for you to develop your abilities. They will send more ships, more soldiers. They will hunt down every human who shows signs of the Rising. Then we need to get stronger fast, Jake said. How do we do that? I do not know, Zarathul admitted. This has never happened before. You are the first species to survive the initial feeding process. Jake looked around the room at the other survivors. These people had lost everything, their homes, their families, their entire world. But they were still alive, and some of them were changing into something new. Then we figure it out together, he said. All of us. Danny Lee stepped forward. What if she's lying? What if this is some kind of trick? Then we'll deal with it, Jake said. But right now, she's the only source of information we have about our enemy. Amy Jackson had been quiet during the discussion, but now she spoke up. Jake, there's something else. The communication equipment is still working. We've been picking up signals from other human colonies. What kind of signals? Jake asked. Distress calls. Reports of attacks, but also ... she paused. Also reports of humans fighting back successfully. Jake felt the energy in his body surge with excitement. You mean we're not alone? There are others like us, Amy confirmed. Others who are changing. Others who can fight them. Zarathul looked troubled. If this is happening on multiple worlds, then the Rising is not limited to your colony. It is spreading throughout your species. Is that bad? Jake asked. For the Vorthic Empire? Zarathul smiled grimly. It is very bad. For humanity? It might be the beginning of something we have never seen before. What's that? A prey species that fights back and wins. Jake looked around the room at the faces of the survivors. They were scared, hurt, and angry. But they were also changing into something new. Something that might be able to stand against the darkness that had swallowed their world. Then let's get to work, he said. Jake Morrison stood in the rubble, watching the alien commander take another step backward. The white light had faded from his skin, but he could still feel something warm moving through his body. It was like having electricity in his blood, but it did not hurt. It felt natural, like it had always been there, and was just now waking up. Zarathul stared at him with those dark eyes. Her red skin had gone pale, and her fangs were showing. She looked like a predator that had just discovered its prey could. Bite back. Human, she said slowly. What are you? Jake did not have an answer for that. 5 minutes ago, he had been dying in the ruins of his home. Now he felt better than he had in years. The pain from his wounds was gone. His broken ribs had healed. Even the cut on his forehead had stopped bleeding. I'm still figuring that out, he said honestly. The voice calling his name came closer. Jake, where are you? The building is going to collapse. It was Dr. Lisa Carter. She had been the colony's chief medical officer and one of the few people who had argued they should evacuate before the aliens arrived. Jake had thought she was dead when the Vorthic attacked the medical center. I'm here, he called back. But, stay back. There's one of them with me. Zarathul's head turned toward the voice. Her hunting instincts were taking over again. Jake could see it in the way she moved, like a cat getting ready to pounce. Whatever had happened to him, it had not changed what she was. More prey, she said, and her voice had gotten colder. Good. I need to feed after what you did to me. You're not touching her, Jake said. You cannot stop me, human. Whatever trick you use, it will not work twice. Jake was not sure about that. He could feel the warm energy moving through his body again, responding to his anger. It was getting stronger, like a fire that had been given more fuel. Want to bet? He asked. Zarathul moved faster than any human could. 1 second she was standing 10 feet away. The next she was right in front of him with her claws reaching for his throat. Jake reacted without thinking, grabbing her wrist with his bare hand. The moment their skin touched, white light exploded. Between them, Zarathul screamed and tried to pull away, but Jake held on tight. The light was brighter this time, and he could feel it flowing out of him and into her. But this was not like when she had tried to feed on him. This energy was not being drained away. It was being given freely, and it was burning her from the inside. Let go! She shouted. Her voice full of pain. Jake released her wrist, and she stumbled backward, holding her arm against her chest. Where he had touched her, the red skin was now white and blistered. She looked at the burn mark, then at him, with something like terror in her eyes. This is impossible, she whispered. Jake. Dr. Carter appeared around the corner of a collapsed wall. She was carrying a medical bag and had dirt on her face, but she looked unhurt. Behind her came 2 other people Jake recognized. Pete Rodriguez had been the colony's chief engineer. He was a short, stocky man with thick hands and a practical mind. Amy Jackson was a pilot who had flown supply runs between the colonies. She was tall and blonde and had always been good in a crisis. All 3 of them stopped when they saw Zarathul. Pete reached for a piece of metal pipe. Amy pulled out a small pistol that had probably been useless against the alien invaders. Lisa just stared. Get back, Jake said quietly. She's dangerous. So are you, apparently, Lisa said, looking at the burn mark on Zarathul's arm. What happened here? I don't know, Jake admitted. She tried to. I think she was trying to eat me, or drain me, something like that. It didn't work. Zarathul was still staring at her burned arm. You should be dead, she said to Jake. I should have drained your life force completely. Instead, you burned me. How? I told you I was figuring it out, Jake said. Lisa stepped forward, her medical training overriding her fear. Jake, you were dying when I last saw you. Your injuries were severe. How are you standing up? I healed, Jake said simply. Fast. That's not medically possible. A lot of things aren't medically possible, Doc. Amy kept her pistol pointed at Zarathol, but she was looking at Jake with confusion. What's going on here? Why isn't the alien attacking us? Because I heard her, Jake said. And I think she's trying to figure out how. Zarathol finally looked up from her arm. You are not like the others of your species. Your life force is different, stronger, and it fights back. Is that why you couldn't feed on me? Jake asked. Feed on you? Pete said. What does that mean? They're vampires, Jake explained. They drain life energy from other species. That's how they survive. Lisa looked sick. You mean they've been ... eating people? Not eating, Zarathol corrected. Feeding. We consume life force, not flesh. It is more efficient. You're monsters, Amy said, her gun shaking in her hands. We are apex predators, Zarathol replied calmly. Just as you humans hunt and kill lesser animals for food, we hunt and kill lesser species for sustenance. It is the natural order. There's nothing natural about it, Jake said. You're parasites. Zaratul's eyes flashed with anger. We are superior beings. We have conquered 1,000 worlds and fed on 1,000,000 species. Your kind is just another meal. She moved toward Jake again, but this time he was ready. He held up his hand, and the white light appeared around his fingers. She stopped immediately. Try it, he said quietly. See what happens. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Jake could feel the energy building inside him, ready to protect his friends if she attacked. Zarathul looked like she wanted to fight, but the burn on her arm was a clear warning. This changes nothing, she said finally. Even if you can hurt me, there are hundreds of my soldiers on this world. They will find you eventually. Maybe, Jake said. But I'm not the same person I was an hour ago. And I don't think I'm done changing. That seemed to worry her more than his threats. She looked at him with new eyes, like she was seeing something that had not been there before. What are you becoming? She asked. I don't know, Jake said honestly. But I know what I'm not becoming. I'm not becoming food. Lisa had been quiet during the exchange, but now she spoke up. Jake, we need to get out of here. The other survivors are gathering at the old mine entrance. It's the only place that's still defensible. Good idea, Jake said, but he kept his eyes on Zarathul. What about her? We should kill her, Amy said immediately. No, Jake said, surprising everyone including himself. She's coming with us. Are you insane? Pete asked. She just tried to kill you. And she failed, Jake pointed out. She's also the first one of them who's seen what I can do. I want her to see what else I can do. Zarathul looked confused. You want me as a prisoner? I want you as a witness. Jake said, you said your people have conquered 1,000 worlds. You say humanity is just another meal. I want you to watch while I prove you wrong. She studied his face for a long moment. You truly believe you can defeat the Vorthic Empire? I believe I can defeat you, Jake said. And if I can defeat you, I can defeat them. You are either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both, Jake admitted. But I'm also very alive when I should be very dead. That has to count for something. Zarathul looked at her burned arm again, then at the three other humans who were watching her with a mixture of fear and hatred. Finally, she looked back at Jake. Very well, she said. I will come with you, but not as your prisoner. As an observer. I want to see what you truly are. Fair enough, Jake said. But if you try to hurt any of my friends, I'll do more than burn your arm. Understood. Lisa shook her head. This is the worst idea anyone has ever had. Probably, Jake agreed. But it's the only idea I've got. They began walking toward the mine entrance, with Zaratho following at a distance. Jake could feel the warm energy still moving through his body, and he wondered what other changes were coming. Whatever was happening to him, it was not over, and somehow he was looking forward to finding out what came next. The red sun of Nethys Prime cast long shadows across the burning ruins of New Phoenix Colony. Smoke rose from collapsed buildings, and scattered debris covered the streets that had once been filled with human families. The air smelled of fire, and Death Dot Commander Zarathul stepped through the wreckage with slow, careful movements. Her tall frame moved like a predator stalking prey. Her crimson skin gleamed in the dying light, and her dark eyes scanned the battlefield with cold satisfaction. Sharp fangs caught the light when she smiled at the destruction around her. The Vorthic Empire had won another easy victory. These humans had fought harder than most species, but they were still weak, still just another meal for her people. Zarathul had led battles on 100 worlds, and it always ended the same way. The prey would resist, then fall, then feed her kind. Behind her, other Vorthic warriors moved through the ruins. They were tall like her, with the same red skin and hungry eyes. Some carried strange weapons that hummed with dark energy. Others used their bare hands, which ended in razor-sharp claws. All of them searched for survivors to drag back to their ships. "Commander," called out Lieutenant Vextar, one of her most trusted soldiers, "we found the human command center. Most of them are dead, but there might be some still alive in the lower levels." Zarathul nodded. "Good. Take a squad and check every room. I want any survivors brought to me alive. Fresh prey is always better than stale. The humans of New Phoenix had surprised her. Most species gave up after the first attack, but these creatures had fought for 3 days. They used clever tactics and refused to surrender even when facing certain death. Some had even managed to kill a few Vorthic warriors before being overwhelmed. It was impressive in a useless way. Courage meant nothing when facing a superior species. The Vorthic had conquered the galaxy one world at a time, feeding on the life force of countless races. Humanity would just be another name on a very long list. Zarathul walked deeper into the colony's central district. Her boots crunched on broken glass and scattered papers. She could smell the fear that still lingered in the air. Fear was almost as good as the actual feeding. It had a sharp, bitter taste that made her fangs ache with hunger. A movement in the corner of her eye made her pause. Near the remains of what looked like a medical building, she saw a figure lying among the rubble. Human, male, young. His uniform marked him as a soldier, probably one of the defenders who had given her troops so much trouble. She moved closer, her steps silent despite her size. The human was breathing, but just barely. Blood covered his face and arms. His weapon lay broken beside him, and his eyes were closed. He looked peaceful, like he was sleeping. "Perfect," she whispered to herself. This one was young and strong. His life force would be rich and satisfying. Zarathul had not fed properly in days, focusing on the battle instead of her hunger. Now she could enjoy both victory and a good meal. She knelt beside the fallen human, studying his face. He had brown hair and what her people will call average features. Nothing special about him at all. Just another weak creature who had tried to fight the inevitable. The human's eyes opened suddenly. They were blue, she noticed, like the sky on some of the worlds she had conquered. For a moment, he looked confused, like he was trying to remember where he was. Then his gaze focused on her face. Most prey screamed when they saw a Vorthic warrior. Up close, this one just stared at her with those blue eyes. He tried to sit up, winced in pain, and settled back down. But he kept looking at her without fear. "You're one of them," he said in a weak voice. "The vampires." Zarathul smiled, showing her fangs. "We prefer Vorthic, and you are my dinner." The human, she could see a name tag that read Morrison, actually smiled back. "Jake Morrison, New Phoenix Defense Force, and I'm not dead yet. You will be soon," she told him. But first, you will feed me. Jake Morrison tried to reach for something on his belt, probably a weapon. His hand shook with the effort, and he gave up after a few seconds. My friends, ... Did any of them make it? Some. They will feed my soldiers, just like you will feed me. That's not going to happen, Jake said quietly. Zarathul laughed. It was a sound like breaking glass. Human, you can barely move. You have. No weapons, no help coming, and no hope. What exactly do you think you can do to stop me? I don't know yet, Jake admitted. But I'll figure something out. His confidence was amusing. She had seen this kind of defiance before, usually right before feeding time. Some prey species tried to bargain. Others begged. A few tried to fight even when they were dying. Jake Morrison seemed to be the fighting type. You interest me, human, she said, placing one clawed hand on his chest. Most of your kind cry or beg when they see me. You just lie there making threats you cannot keep. I'm not making threats, Jake said. I'm making promises. Zarathul's hand began to glow with dark energy. This was how her people fed, they drained the life force directly from their prey. It was usually quick and painless. She preferred to think of it as merciful. Any last words? She asked. Yeah, Jake said, still meeting her eyes. You picked the wrong species to mess with. She pressed her hand down harder and began the feeding process. Dark energy flowed from her fingers into Jake's body, seeking his life force. She expected to feel the familiar rush of power as his essence flowed into her. Instead, something went wrong. The dark energy hit something inside Jake and stopped. Not just stopped, it was pushed back. Zarathul felt a strange warmth rising from the human's body. It was not painful, but it was completely unexpected. What ... She started to say. Jake's chest began to glow with soft, white light. The light grew brighter and started to spread outward from where her hand touched him. Zarathul felt a burning sensation in her fingers and jerked her hand away. The human was still looking at her, but now his eyes held something she had never seen before in prey. Not fear, not anger, but something else. Something that made her take a step backward. Like I said, Jake Morrison whispered, and his voice was stronger now. Wrong species. The white light continued to spread across his body. His wounds began to close. His breathing became steady and deep. And for the first time in her very long life, Commander Zarathul of the Vorthic Empire felt something she had never experienced before. She felt afraid. Around them, the ruins of New Phoenix Colony continued to burn. In the distance, she could hear her soldiers calling out to each other as they searched for survivors. Everything was exactly as it should be after a successful conquest. Everything except for the human who was supposed to be dead, who was now sitting up and looking at her with those impossible blue eyes. This is not possible, she said. More to herself than to him. Jake Morrison stood up slowly, testing his balance. The white light faded from his skin, but she could still sense something different about him. Something that made her hunting instincts scream warnings. A lot of things are possible, he said calmly. You just haven't discovered them yet. From somewhere in the ruins, she heard a human voice calling out. Jake! Jake! Where are you? More survivors. Her soldiers would find them soon. But suddenly, Zarathul was not sure that would be as easy as she had thought. She looked at Jake Morrison, who was now standing between her and the voice of his friend. He had no weapons, no armor, and no chance of defeating her in a fair fight. But something had changed in the last few minutes. Something that made her ancient instincts whisper that this prey was different. Very different. And for the first time in 1,000 years of conquest, Commander Zarathul wondered if maybe her people had finally found something they could not simply feed upon and forget.